Buddy. I hope that you're well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 7 English lesson on misplaced and dangling modifiers. Misplaced and dangling modifiers. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English language arts. We're doing grade 7. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of misplaced and dangling modifiers. All right. So our chapter is misplaced and dangling modifiers. Our subject is English language arts, grade 7. And in the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of misplaced and dangling modifiers is misplaced modifiers with pictures. And we're going to select the misplaced or dangling modifiers. So that is our lessons for today. All right. And when it comes to modifiers, right, or dangling modifiers, a modifier is a word or phrase that modifies or describes another word or another phrase. So a modifier, once again, sorry, we see a modifier. It is a word, or we can say it's a phrase, that modifies or it describes another word or another phrase. It describes or modifies another word or phrase. And when a modifier seems to describe something other than what's intended, the resulting sentence, then the resulting sentence can suggest a confusing or even a nonsensical message, meaning it's not making sense. And when it comes to, once again, that's a modifier. Now if we talk about a misplaced modifier, then a misplaced modifier We firstly said a modifier is a word or a phrase that modifies or describes another word or phrase. But now, if we have a misplaced modifier and then a misplaced modifier, it is a modifier that appears to modify the wrong word or the wrong phrase because it is either too far from the word or the phrase that it should modify. So it is either too far from the word that it must modify, or it is too far from a phrase that it should modify. All right. And if we look at an example of a misplaced modifier, an example of a misplaced modifier all right. So we said a misplaced modifier. It's a modifier that appears to modify either the wrong word or the wrong phrase because it is either too far from that word that it should modify, or it is basically too far from that phrase that it should modify. And we said an example of that word, or an example of misplaced modifier. It is Winston saw monkeys and peacocks on vacation in India. Vincent saw monkeys and peacocks on vacation in India. All right. And if we look at that sentence, right, then this sentence, it has a misplaced modifier. And when we talk about the misplaced modifier, and then here it says, right, Winston saw monkeys and peacocks on vacation in India, which gives us the idea that the way it was written, it seems as if the monkeys and the peacocks were on vacation. All right. So, which means that if we look at our sentence, right, it says that the sentence has misplaced modifier, and the reason why it has a misplaced modifier, it is a modifier that appears to, you know, to modify the wrong word or phrase. All right. And if we were to correct, because remember, we still need to also correct that sentence. If we say Winston saw monkeys and peacocks on vacation in India, firstly, peacocks and monkeys can't go on vacation, right? So, which means that we say that that sentence shows already a misplaced modifier. So, now if we were to fix that sentence, then it says on vacation in India. Winston saw monkeys and peacocks. Not monkeys and peacocks on vacation, monkeys and peacocks. So now it suggests that Vincent was on vacation. All right. So now when it comes to a dangling modifier, remember we spoke about misplaced and dangling modifiers. So now when it comes to a dangling modifier is a modifier that appears to modify the wrong word or phrase because the word or the phrase that it should modify is missing from the sentence. It is missing from the sentence. And if we look at an example, right, of a dangling modifier, then it is trying to fall asleep. The sheets felt uncomfortably hot. Trying to fall asleep, the sheets felt uncomfortably hot. And if we look at an example, right, it says trying to fall asleep, the sheets felt uncomfortably hot. And that sentence, right, of trying to fall asleep, the sheets felt uncomfortably hot, it has a dangling modifier. It should suggest that the sheets were trying to fall asleep. All right. And if we were to fix that sentence, because remember we said trying to fall asleep, the sheets felt uncomfortably hot, which means that that is a dangling modifier because it suggests that the sheets were trying to fall asleep. And if we were to replace that, we would say trying to fall asleep. I felt uncomfortably hot in the sheets. Now that is correct. All right. So now we're going to aplusstudents.ca and we are going to go over misplaced and dangling modifiers. What is a modifier? What is a misplaced modifier? And what is a dangling modifier? And then our test. All right. We're going to the first one, misplaced modifiers with pictures. We need to say which sentence better matches the image. And if we look at this um, picture, right, the possible suggestions or answers is Olivia built a bookshelf as a gift for her uncle, made entirely out of cherry wood. Or Olivia built a bookshelf made entirely out of cherry wood as a gift for her uncle. Which one is correct? So we need to select the sentence that better matches the picture, the image. And we can say that Olivia built a bookshelf as a gift for her uncle made out of cherry wood. The next one says, if we look at our picture over here, then we need to choose if planted well and watered regularly, gardeners can expect most flowers to bloom in springtime. Or do we say if planted well and watered regularly, most flowers can be expected to bloom in the springtime? All right, and if we were to choose the correct option, All right. So now, before we go on to the next one, right? Now, if we look at the next picture, it says, if we look at the next picture, right, we need to say Emily caught a monarch butterfly using a butterfly net and showed it to her brother. Or do we say, using a butterfly net, Emily caught a monarch, was it a monarch or monarch butterfly and showed it to her brother? All right. So we said that Emily caught a monarch butterfly using a butterfly net and showed it to her brother. Or do we say, using a butterfly net, Emily caught a monarch butterfly and showed it to her brother? All right. And if we were to choose the correct word or the correct sentence that basically agrees with, that is not a some form of modifier, then we'll go with the first one. That Emily caught the monarch butterfly using a butterfly net and showed it to her brother. We're going to our test. It says, which sentence better matches the image? Is it option one? After being shrunk in the wash, Molly's favorite sweater no longer fits her. Or do we say, after being shrunk in the wash, Molly no longer fits into her favorite sweater? So we need to choose the correct option, option one or option two. After being shrunk in the wash, Molly's favorite sweater no longer fits her. Or do we say after being shrunk in the wash, Molly no longer fits into her favorite sweater? And we need to choose which sentence better matches the image. After being shrunk in the wash, Molly's favorite sweater no longer fits her. Or do we say Molly no longer fits into her favorite sweater? Which one is correct? Option one or option two? Which one is correct? All right, so it's actually Molly no longer fits into her sweater. All right, let us go to the next one. The next one says Mary was stung by a bee playing soccer in the park. Or do we say playing soccer in the park, Mary was stung by a bee? We need to choose the correct option, option one or option two. Mary was stung by a bee playing soccer in the park. Or do we say playing soccer in the park? Mary was stung by a bee. And if we were to choose the correct option, we will say Mary was stung by a bee playing soccer. And the bee is kicking the ball. All right, the first one is that. The next one says if planted well and watered regularly, most flowers can be expected to bloom in the springtime. Or do we say option two, if planted well and watered regularly, gardeners can expect most flowers to bloom in the springtime. All right, so we will say if planted well and watered regularly, gardeners can expect most flowers to bloom in the springtime. All right, so option two is correct. The next one says Eva built a bookshelf as a gift for her uncle, made entirely out of cherry wood. Or do we say it's option two? Eva built a bookshelf made entirely out of cherry wood as a gift for her uncle. We need to choose the correct option. All right. And if we were to choose the correct option, whether it is option one or option two, and then we will say option one, Eva built a bookshelf as a gift for her uncle made entirely out of cherry wood. All right, and that is correct. The next one says we need to look at the sentence and better match the picture with the words. It says, my family saw a monkey on vacation in Vietnam. Or do we say, on vacation in Vietnam, my family saw a monkey? All right. And if we were to choose the correct option, we would say, my family saw a monkey on vacation in Vietnam. Because we saw. Last one. It says, which sentence better matches the image? Do we say Julia caught a menage butterfly using a butterfly net and showed it to her brother? Or using a butterfly net, Julia caught a menage butterfly and showed it to her brother? And if we were to choose the correct option, whether it's option one or option two. All right. Then we'll say Julia caught a Menage butterfly using a butterfly net and showed it to her brother. What she caught, right? And the last one says, eager for the day to begin, I had my backpack ready to go and waiting by the door. Or option two, eager for the day to begin, my backpack was ready to go and waiting by the door. So if we look at that picture, remember we need to say which sentence specifically or directly matches what we see. So the sentence needs to match the picture. And if we were to choose the sentence that matches the picture, we'll say, eager for the day, my backpack was ready to go waiting by the door. And if we were to choose which sentence better matches the picture or the image, I'd say it's option one, hanging down in the back of the closet. Jeff had almost forgotten about his old tennis racket. Or option two, Jeff had almost forgotten about his old tennis racket hanging upside down in the back of the closet. And if we were to choose the correct option, and if we were to choose the correct one or the correct option between either hanging upside down in the back of the closet, Jeff had almost forgotten about his old tennis record, his tennis racket, or do we say Jeff had almost forgotten about his old tennis racket, hanging upside down in the back of the closet? All right, and if we were to choose the correct option, we'll go with option one. Hanging upside down in the back of his closet, Jeff had almost forgotten his old tennis racket. All right. And we see that misplaced, when it comes to misplaced modifiers with pictures, or at least when it comes to misplaced and dangling modifiers, right? Then once again, a modifier is a word or phrase that modifies or describes another word or phrase. And then a misplaced modifier is a modifier that appears to modify a word or phrase, appears to, because it is too far from the word or the phrase that it should modify. And then we have a dangling modifier, which is a modifier that appears to modify the wrong word or phrase because the word or the phrase that it should modify is missing from the sentence. All right, and this is now the end of our lesson on misplaced and dangling modifiers. Thank you very much for joining the class, grade 7s, and I really hope you're going to have a good evening further. Goodbye. All right. So that's the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade 7. Goodbye.